Hello and welcome to my presentation on Raoul Wallenberg. So I'm Emily Lewis, and I don't know about you guys, but when I study the Second World War, it's quite easy for me to lose my faith in humanity. But Wallenberg's story is a wonderful example of kindness and sacrifice that definitely restores some of that faith. So, to give you a quick overview, Raoul Wallenberg was a Swedish man who was 1/16 Jewish. He worked as a businessman, architect, diplomat, and a humanitarian, and ended up saving thousands of Hungarian Jewish lives and leading one of the most successful rescue missions during the Nazi era. But before we get into all those details, let's just start at the very beginning. So little Raoul was born in a lovely little town in Sweden, but I'm gonna have to let Siri pronounce this one for me because it's quite a tongue twister.
Lidingö Municipality.
So this town is quite close to Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, just for reference. So his parents were quite wealthy and they had high status and good reputation in the community. His father was called Raoul Oscar Wallenberg and his mother was Maria Sophia Weising. Maria's parents were Professor Per John Weising and Sophie Weising. They lived in Stockholm and so they were quite close in distance as well as relationally. But unfortunately, baby Raoul never had the opportunity to know his dad or his maternal grandpa. His father sadly died of cancer a few months before his birth. This was in 1912. And his grandpa died a few months after. So he was raised by two newly widowed women, his mother and his grandmother. When he was 7, his mother remarried and he gained a stepfather and eventually 2 half-siblings. So once he was done with high school, he joined the Swedish military, which was a national requirement. And after 8 months, he was free to move on. So his remaining grandfather, on his father's side, sent him to a school in Paris. After only a year of studying in Paris, he decided to study elsewhere. So off he went to America to study architecture in Michigan. He enjoyed living freely and wasn't afraid to join the less privileged in their way of life. He liked hitchhiking around America and traveling quite a lot because it included meeting new and different people, and it kept him on his toes. And I like to think that this gave him a good perspective and experience for his later humanitarian work. Alright, so in 1935, Wallenberg graduated and made a quick stop at home in Sweden, but soon after, he got a construction job in Cape Town, South Africa. So he went there and he worked there for 6 months, and then he moved to Haifa, the third largest city in Israel. And there he worked at a branch in the Holland Bank. However, this didn't last very long because in 1936 he got a new job in his grandparents' hometown, Stockholm. He now worked for the Hungarian Jewish man named Kalman Luhr, who owned a trading company that exported and imported things all around Europe. It became difficult for Luhr, his boss, to travel to Hungary because anti-Jewish laws were growing there. So Wallenberg became the company's representative, mostly out of necessity, in Hungary, which caused him to learn the language very well. He also traveled to Germany, which gave him some insight into the Nazi system. And again, this is preparing him for his future work, and it really benefits him later in life. So after a year of this work as a Hungarian representative and a traveler and a businessman, he became the joint owner and company director, and by now it was 1942. So while Wallenberg was busy being a businessman, the US was creating the American War Refugee Board, which began working with the Swedish government to help Jews in Hungary, which was slowly becoming more and more Nazi involved and invaded. An American diplomat named Ivar Olson was in Stockholm looking for someone to help the Jews that were under oppression in Hungary. Wallenberg was already hoping to help, so he eagerly accepted the task when Olson came to him. This is where his more legendary work begins. So his first mission began on July 9th, 1944. He was assigned as first secretary to the Swedish legislation in Hungary. He had no experience in diplomacy or secret operations, but nevertheless, after 1 month, Wallenberg was able to come up with a plan to save the Jews. He used his pretend role to design and provide several false passports for the Hungarian Jews. This made them appear to be Swedish citizens, which prevented them from being deported by the Hungarians to concentration camps. German and Hungarian officials had a fondness for symbolism, and Wallenberg knew this, so he printed the passports in blue and yellow with the Swedish coat of arms in the center. He then added appropriate stamps and signatures, and he convinced the Hungarian Foreign Ministry to approve 4,500 passports. But he issued 3 times as many passports. There was a problem, though. The Nazis had confiscated Jewish homes, businesses, and bank accounts. They had nowhere to go and no way to survive. So Wallenberg used money provided by the War Refugee Board to rent 32 buildings in Budapest, which housed the Jews. After seeing the horrible oppression, he began to get more and more bold. He began to actually risk his life to save Jews in Nazi control. Hungarian police would load Jews onto rail cars, so Wallenberg walked into the crowd of Jews pretending to know them. Sometimes he would whisper instructions to them so that they would answer to a planned fake name that he would call out to them. Hungarians would fire warning shots in the air as he would pretend and go up to these people as they were loading them into the cars. But he didn't pay them any attention, and he was very dedicated to saving as many Jews as possible. Then Soviet troops entered Budapest. Wallenberg was now viewed with suspicion. On the 16th of January, 1945, he was taken into Soviet custody. They accused him of being a spy for Germany because he had been obviously working against Nazi German plans to deport Jews, but somehow was never stopped by Germans. And they supposed that his rebellion was just an act. But this was, of course, false. Their other idea was that he was a spy for the United States because he had suspicious money transfers from the United States. And this is somewhat true. So about a week after his capture, he was put into cell 123 at the Lubyanka prison in Moscow, Russia. After months went by, he disappeared into the Soviet prison system. Wallenberg's family spent decades trying to find him, and they honestly just couldn't let him go. They wrote letters to important Soviet leadership, and on the 8th of March 1945, Soviet sources announced that he had been killed in Budapest in January 1945, either by German troops or in Hungary by the Hungarian Arrow cross-party members. But in 1957, a released Soviet document stated that a prisoner named Wallenberg died from a possible heart attack or heart failure on the 17th of July, 1947. The prison ordered to cremate the body without an autopsy, and this suggests that he was killed by order of his captors, but all of this is very conflicting evidence and has caused his death to remain a big mystery to this day. One of many Jews saved by Wallenberg was a man named Tom Lantos, who went on to become a U.S. congressman. So in 1981, Lantos made sure Wallenberg was made an honorary citizen of the United States. In Israel, he was named a member of the Righteous Among the Nations by the Yad Vashem Memorial. In 1989, the Soviet Union returned his personal belongings to his family. They claimed that they were found in an old storeroom. The family did not take this seriously because they didn't trust the Soviet Union. In October 2016, he was declared dead. The official date of his death is the 31st of July, 1952, which was 5 years after he definitely disappeared. This is simply a legal date because after 5 years go by, that is when they declare a death in Sweden, but no one truly knows. These are only a few of the many, many awards and honors that Wallenberg has received all over the world. So many Jews appreciate him, and it is suggested by many estimates that he had saved up to 100,000 Jews from being sent to death camps, which is a huge achievement and is celebrated all over the world.